What is up, guys? So only two divisions left today. I want to do the 160-pound middleweight division, which is talented as fuck. Great division. It's my second best. It flirts with number one all the time. I actually think welterweight, middleweight, and heavyweight are neck and neck with each other right now. Just they've been great. Welterweight at the very top is probably the better division at the very top, maybe top 5, 6. But deep wise, I think middleweight's a little bit better in terms of how deep it is. But either way, it's great. But I'm still saying welterweight's number one, so middleweight's my number 2 division, and we're gonna break that one down right now. Let's start with the kind of year middleweight had. Middleweight is still, like I said, at the very top of boxing. Triple G, Canelo, Danny Jacobs. You got really good, talented fighters beyond that. And now a lot of those guys have set platforms now to be fighting on. And some of the guys that even in defeat this year really proved that they belong in the big picture, this year facing some of the best fighters. So, we'll get into those guys too. And let's start with the outs. There are 3 guys out that were coming into it last year, coming into the top 10. The highest ranked guy of those is Martin Murray, former interim champion, 4-time world title challenger. Murray is 36 years old now, and he came into the year he was lined up to face Billy Joe Saunders for the world title 2 times, and both fights had to get canceled due to Saunders' weight issues or not weight issues, health issues, I guess, injuries. He gave Saunders a lot of shit for that. He came back and fought some veteran, little-known fighter in June, got a decision win. And then he took on Hassan Nadam at the end of December, which I was kind of surprised that he would take on a guy of that level instead of waiting around for a bigger title shot, because Nadam's a former champ and very legitimate middleweight. And he got outboxed and he got outworked in that fight. It was a close fight, but he ended up losing a decision in it. A close decision, and he decided to retire after that, which is probably the best. Murray has seen his best days. He should have been a world champion once for sure, maybe twice. He got robbed against Felix Sturm when they fought years ago. He took on Sergio Martinez in a great fight in Venezuela, put Martinez down in that fight. It was a close decision loss, against Martinez at the time. So, you can argue he should have been world champion a couple times. He took Arthur Abraham the distance and lost a split decision to him for the super middleweight title. And then Triple G is the only guy that really beat him and knocked him out in the 11th of their fight years ago in a really good fight. But at the time, he was the first guy to take Triple G that deep into a fight. And, Triple G wore him down and stopped him. But it was an impressive performance at the time because Triple G was just blowing everybody out. And Martin Murray wasn't going to let that be him. So great career right there. Shame he never officially became a world champion, but he should have. And, just a good, solid career right there. So, shame to see a guy like him go, but it's the right time. He's 36. Next up, who's out of it, is former WBO champion Andy Lee, who's 34 years old now. He came in tied for 10th. He was coming off of 2017 where he only fought once. And you could tell just Andy Lee just didn't have the love and the passion for it anymore. The last couple years, especially since he lost the title to Billy Joe Saunders, he just really didn't have the passion for it. He only fought a couple times since, and they were both kind of, unimpressive performances. And he didn't fight at all in 2018 and decided to officially retire. So at 34 years old, I wish we would have seen him a couple more times. He was always entertaining, and he had a wicked right hook and a lot of power. But, the guy doesn't have the passion for it anymore. He shouldn't fight unless he needs the money. And, and even that might not even be a good thing because he could get hurt. So, good luck to him. And then the last guy on our list that's out of it now is former WBO champion Peter Kid Chocolate Quillen, who is 35 years old now. So he's not so much of a kid. He ended up moving up in weight to 168 officially, and he took on Jalen Love, who's a legitimate, super middleweight, but not a top 10 guy. And he pretty much outworked and outdid Love the entire fight, got a decision win. So, you could throw his name into the conversation now. Now he's facing a top 10 guy. He's facing former champ Caleb Truax on April 20th. You know, we're going to see if he's going to get himself in the mix at 35 years old at super middleweight, and if that's going to matter. This guy's never been really that active, so don't look to see him outside of more than twice this year, but that would be a big improvement. I think he's got a shot against Truax. Truax is an older former world champ. You know, Kid Chocolate does have skill, and we're going to see what he does at this age. This is probably his last run and to try to get in the mix to become a two-division world champ, and we'll see what he's made of on April 13th, not 20th. He's on April 13th. He's taking on Caleb Truax. Should be a good fight right there. And now we break into the top 10. The top 10 middleweights in the world right now. I actually have a two-way tie for 10th right at the back of it. Actually, I want to give some love that I considered and probably I want to give some love to Matt Korobov. Just missed it, and he actually should be here. Actually, I am going to rank him. I'll throw him in as I'm thinking about it right now. Matt Korobov, former two-time world title challenger. He had, or one-time, short notice, less than a week's notice, and fought Jamal Charlo and gave him hell. It was a really good, hard-fought battle. I didn't include him because I pretty much think I already had my top list set already at the end of the month. He really deserves to be there, so I'm moving him into a three-way chin. And you know, I was really impressed with the performance he put up against Charlo. He landed some good hard shots. Charlo won the fight, but he shouldn't have won the blowout decision that he ended up getting on the cards. But a really good hard-fought battle, especially on short notice, and I hope the guy keeps banging around because he's a good fighter. Okay, now tied with him for 10th is Maciej Sulecki, who actually he didn't come into the year ranked. Had a chance to fight Jermell Charlo at 154. He was the mandatory, and he decided to let that go and move up in order for a bigger payday against Danny Jacobs. And he took on Jacobs on it, but he fought really hard against Jacobs. He went down in the 12th round, but he showed a lot of heart getting up and finishing the fight. He lost a lot of decision, but again, he fought really hard, and he deserves a lot of credit for the way he fought. And to me, he proved he's a legitimate top guy, top 10 guy. So yeah, I want to rank him there and give him some love. And you know, he ended up coming back towards the end of the year. I think he got a knockout win, and we'll see what he decides to do next when he takes, you know, and who's going to give him a chance. Actually, he was being considered for a fight with Jamal Charlo, but Charlo ended up going with Willie Monroe, and then ended up facing Matt Korobov, as we said. So should be an interesting year for Sulecki. See if he can get back in the mix. Finishing the year number tied with him for 10th is Sergey Derevyanchenko. He actually fought for the title this year. He got a win earlier in the year, a knockout win over Deshaun Johnson, an unknown guy, and then he took on Danny Jacobs for the vacant IBF title. There was a lot of people that thought Derevyanchenko had a good shot. I was one of them. But Jacobs went in there and just outworked them. Outworked them. He kept coming forward, and he landed some good shots during the fight. It went to the scorecards. He lost the split decision. I didn't think the fight was that close, but it was a good fight. And, he showed he belongs in the conversation. But at 33 years old, that was his first defeat, and he doesn't have a big name. I don't know how much opportunity the guy's going to get in 2019. Hopefully he can work himself into some kind of an eliminator before the end of the year, but I don't think any of the big names are going to come knocking unless they're just trying to stay busy and want to face a real legitimate middleweight as they stay busy. So we'll see. Next up at number 9 is former WBA champion Ryota Murata. He actually drops 3 spots from number 6. He's 32 years old now. This year was supposed to be kind of his stay busy before a big fight year. And in in April, he took on some unknown guy, held on to his world title with an 8th round TKO. And then he came back in October and took on Rob Brandt, whose really only claim to fame at the time was the fact that he was in the World Boxing Super Series in 2017. And he made it he got into the first round, and he got pretty much outclassed against Jürgen Brammer, former 2-division champ. So he hadn't done much other than that, hadn't really beaten anybody. and he came in and absolutely kicked the shit out of Murata. Murata did not do well. He got completely outboxed, outclassed. He made it to the distance, but he lost a one-sided decision and lost his world title. He contemplated, even at the moment, he's a former Olympian and gold medalist. He contemplated retiring, but he decided he's going to come back in 2019. He's with Top Rank. He's actually a joint co-promotion with Top Rank. But I'm not sure. I think this might be either a bounce back year. Maybe he gets into a bigger fight late in the year. Disappointing for him because I think he was really close to a showdown with Triple G early next year. And this just ruined all of that. There was a lot of talks, a lot of rumors that was Triple G's favorite to come back against. But like I said, that got all ruined. And, we'll see what he decides to do next. I think he's a good, solid fighter. But obviously, it doesn't look like he's top level, which he was being groomed to be and thought he would be. So we'll see how he does in 2019. Maybe he was overlooking Rob Brandt. We just don't know. But he's definitely not knocking on the door for a rematch with Rob Brandt either. Speaking of Rob Brandt, he is the number 8 finishing at the end of the year. He wasn't ranked last year. Again, the only reason I even knew who this guy was is because of the World Boxing Super Series in 2000. They're trying to, push weight class. And he didn't do, he got a win earlier in the year. Somehow became the mandatory number 1 contender to Ryota Murata. And, he got, everybody thought he was going to get dominated. I thought that too. And he went in there, and like I said, it was one of the upsets of the year. I think this was a 2 or 3 for me, an upset of the year. And he dominated Murata with ease and became the new world champ. He's now signed on with Top Rank, so you're going to be able to see him fight going forward. And he even said, he goes, hey, I'll fight Triple G next, since Triple G was going to fight Murata anyways. Got to wait and see on that one. Not sure if Triple G is going to want to go in there against a pure boxer, but we'll see. I mean, it was a good win. He got one of the best wins of the year, and 7 is undefeated WBC interim champion Jermall Charlo. He entered the year at the very top of the division, lined up for a possible title shot at some point, but they put him into an interim title fight against who was the guy? I think, hold on one second, Hugo Centennial Juno. They were talking about his power and all that. They built the guy up to be something, but he really was nothing. He hadn't done anything. And Charlo, with no surprise, went in there and knocked him out in the second round. He won the WBC interim title with that win, and moved himself. What looked like he was going to get Canelo next, but the WBC is very lenient, and they allowed Triple G to face Canelo in September in a rematch. So then after that fight, they mandated Jermall to face Triple G next, with the winner to face Canelo after that. Triple G didn't say anything about the fight, so Jermall decided to stay busy and was planned to take on Willie Monroe Jr., and he ended up having to face Matt Korobov on short notice. You got to give Charlo credit facing a guy like Korobov, who is real legit. And if you saw the fight, you saw how good Korobov was. He landed some good hard shots on Charlo. Charlo kept coming. He was a busier fighter. I felt like he did more in the rounds, and that's what won him the fight. But it definitely wasn't the blowout that they scored it. But I give him credit for facing a guy of Korobov's level on such short notice. So he got a decision win. Hopefully the fight, I want to see him fight Canelo. He's undefeated, an undefeated American. He talks a big game, and I think he gets his ass whipped against Triple G or Canelo. But I want to see one of those two guys fight him next, shut him up, or give him the opportunity. He was a champ at 154. He's the interim champ. I mean, when you become interim or mandatory, you should get your title shot. I hope the WBC mandates that Canelo or Triple G follows through and faces him. We just got to wait and see, especially we got to wait and see what Triple G decides to do next, which network he's going to go to. But, I want to see Charlo get one of these big names that he's always calling out, and his brother always calling out. I'm really sick and tired of hearing him and his brother talk shit and not fight anybody. So next up is number 6, former champ David Lemieux. David Lemieux is, he previously was number 7, so he moves up one spot. He's old now, so he's in his physical prime. But Lemieux's been around for a long time. That power has carried him for a long, long time. That guy, he was young and really dazzled people with his power. Became champ about 3 or 4 years ago. Like I said, I'm surprised he's only 30. I thought he was older than that because he's a very good fighter in terms of power and stuff. Well, he came in coming off a tough loss to Billy Joe Saunders in 2017 where he got his ass whipped, one-sided decision at home in Canada. He said he had a shoulder injury. You know, he just rested his shoulder, according to him. He didn't get surgery. In May, he took on some unknown guy, and he ended up missing weight, so he had to face the guy at the 168-pound level. The decision. And then on the Canelo Triple G2 undercard, he took on Gary O'Sullivan, which was a big middleweight contenders bout at the time. O'Sullivan was threatening to be in the top 10. He was right around the top 10. And Lemieux was, you know, trying to put himself in position for a title shot. And he blasted O'Sullivan. It was, I think it was my knockout of the year at 160. And it was one of the best knockouts of the year overall. Dominated him, but, you know, O'Sullivan touched on it. And it was obvious that Lemieux gained a lot of weight from the weigh-in to the next day. And I think that, you know, I don't call advantage. If that's within the rules, and that's within the rules. You can blow up as many pounds as you need to. But, you know, you could tell that that's what the case was. He was supposed to come back a third time this year in December on the Canelo-Rocky Fielding undercard. And he was really being viewed as a possible contender for Canelo, and he still is. But he ended up missing weight and like fainted and had to go to the hospital. So now it's pretty much official that he's going to be moving up to 168. I'm not sure if he's going to carry the power up there. When he's had weight issues before and missed weight, which he's done about 3 times in the past couple of years, he has not looked good at the heavier weight. Like, he's looked okay, but he hasn't seemed to be stronger. So maybe now that he's planning on going to 168, that will change. We're definitely going to see this year because he should be fighting at 168. From what I hear, he's still being considered as a possible opponent for Canelo in May, now that Canelo holds a belt at 168. So we'll see what happens. I wouldn't be surprised either way. But Lemieux, no matter what, he's going to get on a Canelo card, and he's going to fight somebody good. So you can count pretty much on both those things. And he's a good name on the list. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does at 168 going forward. But I'm not going to rank him at 168 until he gets a fight up there and to see how he looks. And that's not threatening that he's going to come back, because he's not. But I haven't seen him against any legitimate super middleweight. So I need to see him fight a super middleweight first and to see where I'm going to put him. Okay, next at number 5 is the undefeated WBO champion, Demetrius Andrade. He actually came into the year, he had debuted the previous year at middleweight, and he was looking to get into some bigger fights since he had signed a 3-fight contract with HBO. But that actually ended up not happening. He didn't end up fighting on HBO at all in 2018. Then he ended up signing with Eddie Hearn in Matchroom and got thrown into the mix right away. He was supposed to challenge Billy Joe Saunders in a mandatory WBO title fight, and Billy Joe Saunders couldn't make the weight. Or no, Billy Joe Saunders tested positive for something, and he got stripped of the title. This was actually one of the most anticipated fights that I wanted to see. It was 2 southpaw boxers going at it, and I really thought Andrade had a good chance to upset Billy Joe. And Billy Joe, that happened, and then on short notice, he had to take on the WBO number 2, some guy named Walter Kadindokwa or something like that from Africa, and he pretty much dominated him. He scored a couple knockdowns. He got a one-sided decision. Now he's fighting on Matchroom. He's coming back on January 18th, and he's headlining a card. He's taking on Arthur Akakov, who's not a bad middleweight according to what he's done already. He actually fought Billy Joe Saunders a couple years ago for the title, and a lot of people thought he got robbed in that fight. It wasn't like an overwhelming amount, but there was a good amount of people that said the fight was a lot closer than they scored it, and some people felt Akakov beat Saunders. So, you know, this one should be interesting. I think he's going to get a decision win and hold on to his belt. But this guy doesn't dazzle me, and he keeps calling out people, but who has he beaten? He's beaten Vanes Martirosyan, and that's pretty much it in terms of big name competition. He's beaten a couple kind of under the radar, solid middleweights, our junior middleweights at 154, but he hasn't really beaten anybody impressive. Yeah, it's not his fault, Billy Joe, what happened to Billy Joe, but I don't think he's going to get a Canelo fight this year, even though Eddie Hearn wants him to fight Canelo and he has a world title. I mean, Canelo, I don't think he really cares about titles as much. I think he cares about titles, but he also cares about big name fights and fights that people are interested in. And I think Canelo learned his lesson from facing Erislandy Lara. He didn't have to fight Lara when he did, and he fought him when he did. And Lara, who's a very skilled southpaw, made him look bad, no matter who you think won that fight. Personally, I think both of them fought like shit, Lara and Canelo, and the fight should have been scored a draw just to teach them a lesson. Nobody deserved to be a winner that night. But, yeah, I think he learned his lesson from the southpaw jinx. I think De La Hoya is going to keep him away from that, unless it's a fight he absolutely has to take because it's a big money fight. And, you know, and I think that's smart. So we'll see. But, you know, Andre, the only reason I even bring that up is Andre's really, and Eddie Hearn are really pushing for the Canelo fight this year, and I just don't see it happening. Maybe David Lemieux or somebody on that level, but even Lemieux's moving up in weight now. So I don't know if Andre's going to get those big names, but he's definitely going to stay active fighting under Matchroom and Eddie Hearn. So that's good at least. Finishing the year number 4 is Billy Joe Saunders. He didn't fight all year. He had to bail out of 2 fights with injuries with Martin Murray. He had him lined up twice. And then in October, as I just said, he tested positive for something and had to vacate, or got stripped of it. Or no, I think he vacated his belt in order to fight the charges. And then when he actually came back in December on an undercard. It wasn't even televised. And he didn't look great. He looked like shit in terms of his weight. And then he got a 4th round TKO against some nobody. And that was his only fight this year. So, you know, I'm glad he had that fight just to keep him on the list. But yeah, he says 2019 he's coming back strong. I would like to see him in Demetrius Andre, the fight that we got robbed of. You know, and then after that, we'll see what he does. We'll see if anybody's willing to face him. But he looked bad in terms of his shape because they showed highlights of that fight that he had in December. And his shape, he looked bad. So, you know, we'll see what he does going forward. Talented as hell, and he had a great win over David Lemieux in December of 2017. So it was really a bad time for testing positive and injuries and all that shit to keep him out of action. So we'll see how he bounces back in 2019 because this guy was seriously like a breath away from facing Triple G in August of this past year before Triple G and Canelo 2 got signed. That's how close he was. So he really is blowing it for himself with testing positive for shit and injuries and missing weight. So again, we'll see how he bounces back. Okay, finishing year number 3 is the IBF champion Michael Jacobs. He came into the year coming off of 2017. And even late rounds. And then he took Anko, which I was impressed with him taking this fight because he was very close to landing the Canelo fight if Canelo Triple G2 didn't get signed. And he probably could have just stayed busy against some so-and-so fighter. And Triple G ended up getting stripped of the IBF title. And with that belt going vacant, you know, he didn't have to take that because he was right on the verge of facing Canelo again, facing Canelo. And he decided to take on Derevyanchenko, who's an undefeated, legitimate, real threat in the division that people were saying. And he outboxed him. I thought he clearly outboxed him. It was a good fight. It was competitive, but they scored it a split decision, which I didn't think it was that close, but it was a good fight. And, Jacobs became a world champ again. So, he's got a title belt now that makes him more attractive to a Canelo. And right now he's supposed to be the favorite for May with Canelo to unify belts. But with Canelo moving up to 168, winning a belt there, I don't think he's going to stay in that weight. But we never know. I think it's right now it's kind of hit or miss, about 50-50 whether he lands the Canelo fight or not. If he doesn't, I'd love to see him in Triple G again. If he would be willing to take the risk against Andre, I think he'd have a really good shot with his style of beating Andre in unifying belts there. Then he would definitely become an attractive case. And I think that fight's possible if Eddie Hearn can talk him into it. So we just got to wait and see. Again, I like Danny Jacobs a lot. He had a successful year. It wasn't the best year overall, but he had a successful year, and he's very close to landing a Canelo fight, and I hope he gets it. I really hope that's the fight in May, actually, because I'd love to see their two styles match up against each other. Okay, finishing the year number 2 is Triple G, Gennady Golovkin. He drops one spot from number 1. He came into the year, he's actually 36 years old now, and he was supposed to fight Canelo in their rematch in May, which everybody knows. Canelo got, tested for a banned substance, and then he ended up facing Vanes Martirosyan, destroyed him in 2 rounds, held on to his 2 of his belts. The one belt that didn't go on the line, the IBF decided, he had 2 belts going into the Canelo rematch in September, and he fought like a champion. He fought great. But in the rematch, it was different than the first fight. In this one, he came at him, and he fought well, counterpunching and everything. He outlanded Canelo, not by a lot, but by 20 to 30 punches. But Canelo landed the harder shots, and there's nobody that can deny that. And Triple G, again, did not break down Canelo's body, which that was the mistake that I felt cost him the draw in the first fight, and it was in the second fight as well, because the one thing that we know is Canelo's had stamina issues before, late in fights, so he should have broke the body down, and he didn't do it again, and I think that cost him the second fight too. But he's still a great fighter. He was talking about coming back and fighting Ryota Murata earlier in the year, but Ryota Murata lost the title to Rob Brandt. From what I hear, he's very close to signing with somebody, whether it be DAZN or ESPN, and he's going to let everybody know soon. So hopefully we find out what he's doing next and when, and he gets back in the ring. But what I'm really hoping for is I want to see him in Canelo 3 in September. Wait a year again, fight again in September, and go get a win. If he doesn't get a win, so what? I think these guys are so evenly matched. I think the next fight would be close. I think it could go either way. And so what if you lose again to the biggest name in boxing? So what? I mean, those are the only 2 losses. So, he just needs to keep banging around, because the guy fights like he's still young, and he's a great fighter. So no shame in losing to a guy like Canelo, but definitely fight Canelo. Fight the other top dogs in the division. And then finally is Canelo Alvarez, the unified WBC, WBA middleweight champion. He came to year number 2. He moves up 1 spot to number 1. I'm 28 years old. He didn't fight early in the year for testing positive for a banned substance. He got the Triple G fight, got scratched. Nobody really realizes how close these guys were to fighting other people. And De La Hoya had to put a 24-hour notice to Triple G and his people that they need to sign a fight or it's dead completely. Was moving forward with a fight with Danny Jacobs, and Triple G had a fight lined up with Billy Joe Saunders. So this fight almost didn't happen, the rematch. And it ended up happening. September, they went at it again. Great fight. Canelo put on, in my opinion, his best performance, because he changed his style up from the first fight. He didn't lay back and counter punch. He went right at Triple G. Great performance. I was very impressed by it, and it was a good close, and he ended up getting a close 12-round majority decision to capture the unified title. He came back in December. A lot of people thought he was going to fight David Lemieux, and he ended up coming back and facing Rocky Fielding for the WBA regular super middleweight title. Yes, Fielding was a joke, but it was the first fight of an 11-fight contract, and DAZN wanted to get him on as quick as possible. Canelo wanted to get a second fight on the contract, on the year. And, so he took on a guy who nobody thought was going to beat him, but it was a big guy. Rocky Fielding was a lot bigger than Canelo, and Canelo just ate the body up, which was smart for a smaller guy. The guy was very weak in the body. He knocked him out in the 3rd round. Impressive performance. I think it was the 3rd round. And, so that was it. Canelo's now a 2-weight champion at the same time. We really don't know what he's doing next. Danny Jacobs is supposed to be the favorite for May, but there's also talks about David Lemieux. There's still outside talks of Triple G, the 3rd fight happening in May. So we just got to wait and see. I think we should find out by the end of the month to early February what's going to happen with that. I think where Triple G decides to go is going to matter. But either way, Canelo's going to have a big fight in May. Looking forward to that. No matter what, that's going to happen. And I'm very much so looking forward to that. I'm a big fan of Canelo. He's good for boxing. No matter what you think about him, he's good for boxing. And now we know where to see him fight, and we don't have to pay $75, $80 to see him fight anymore. It's a $10 subscription for DAZN. You actually get the first month free. So even if you wait all the way till May, which I don't advise that you do, but even if you do that, you'll get his first fight for free. And then it's just $10 a month after that. You don't have to pay for any fights after that. So, and then they have so much content. Eddie Hearn, Matchroom is with DAZN. The World Boxing Super Series, again, is on DAZN. And now Golden Boy is on DAZN. So a lot of good fighters are going to be on DAZN. And you should definitely tune in to watch it with Canelo, steering the ship. It should be good. All right, guys, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the middleweights. I really took my time on this one because the middleweights deserve that. And then we'll come back either this afternoon or tomorrow with the welterweights, and that'll be it. And, we'll start getting into some other stuff after that. So maybe I'll start breaking down fights. Actually, I believe maybe tomorrow or Saturday I'll be breaking down the card that is taking place on Sunday